Okay, so I have to tell you about this patch. Let me just stop it first. Here we go. Okay, let me simplify it a bit, like take down some of the bells and whistles and listen to... So I have here, like technically 3 synthesizers and 2 sequencers, but all we're hearing is from the neutron, and in fact it's from the first oscillator of the neutron. But there's a lot going on, so if I put it back on. Right, so I started with this. What I'm doing is that I'm actually using, because I thought I really want to get into something kind of chaotic, and I'm thinking with 2 sequencers I should be able to manage something, and yet I've been struggling, so here it goes. What I did is I'm using the oscillator of the Crave set to the lowest possible octave and pitch and I take its pulse, right, the square wave, the width of it I can modulate, so this gives me a gate, sort of a rectangular wave gate, which I would call my long gate, and this goes into the multiple, and then it triggers play stop on the, when the gate is up it plays, otherwise it stops, on the sequencer of the Crave, which has its own tempo that runs independently. Right? It gets better. And then remember it went into the multiple, right? So this comes out of the multiple, that's this gray patch. So this is the, what am I doing? Sorry, we'll come back to that later actually. And then, so the sequencer of the neutron is triggering on its own tempo. I'm using that sensor gate to, I'm splitting it, again a multiple on this, one of which controls the volume envelope, envelope 1 that's default patch to the volume controlled amplifier, the VCA, and this effectively triggers, right, makes the neutron sound. Gosh, it's so much to explain to this patch. Right, so this is how, this is running all the time, but this is how this fires, right, and, right, this is my volume envelope. Okay, that's for the volume, and then so it was split. The initial thing, I also send the long gate to envelope 2, which is a filter envelope. So the filter is opening on its own envelope, that is the longer sequence, which I control here, by the way. So because it's the pitch of my pulse of the Crave, I can... So this is pretty much triggering all the time now. And of course I've got control of the modulation, so I can make it stop most of the time or be running most of the time. So much chaos. What else is going on? So I've done something like super clever, but I can't really remember. So my short gate, like this is the kind of the gate of the sequencer of the Crave. So short as in that triggers more often, is also split. So one of those is into the, as we've discussed, oh gosh, the volume envelope, but the other goes to sync to trigger the sample and hold. So by default, I get there's some noise coming in the sample and hold. Every time it receives a gate, it will sample that signal and send me a straight control volume at whatever, level it's sampled. So this allows me to pick a random number, essentially pick a random value every time this fires, which means that on every note of the short gate of the sequencer, I'm going to get a different volume, control volume here, sorry. Control voltage, right? And this is going into my attenuators, which are patched one into the other by default. This was just showing this. I got to bend over, it's hurting my back. Okay. Right, so I get a different value that comes, which I can control, then further kind of adjust with an attenuator, and they are patched one into another, so that comes up twice. One is attenuator 2. Come back to this later. Let's go to attenuator 1 is controlling the pitch of oscillator 1, which is running at a sort of normal, you know, this is kind of a, well, okay, if I were to hear it, it would sound like this. I think we also have, what we're hearing is the long gate triggering the filter envelope. But we're never hearing this one. It actually modulates the pitch of this one. Well, let's turn that down and patch this back in so we can hear it in full flow. So this is sort of the basic synth of it. Then, of course, I'm just mixing in a little bit of delay. And this is what my second attenuator, so this is the FM, frequency modulation. This is how much the pitch of this guy changes, and so that's going to get in and out of tune for the modulation. But attenuator 2 gives me how much the random sample and hold value modulates the delay time, which, because there's a lot of feedback, will give me those kinds of effects. And so far this has only been firing at a single pitch, and then I've got the 303 or the TD3, the 303 clone. I love, you gotta love those Behringer machines. This is all Behringer kit. I remember when Behringer used to have a bad reputation. To a degree it still does with girls' intellectual property, but I do think they make those kind of analog experiences affordable to everyone. So here it is. And this, right, because it still sends MIDI to the neutron, this might actually gate, this is also, I don't know if it even gets the envelope, but it definitely changes the pitch of both oscillators. Which gives me those variation in pitch. Now those run on their own tempo and with whatever pattern I care to put in, or I can tap two buttons. I don't want to erase something precious, but if I'm go here, I'm on 8, that's good, and I tap those two buttons and I've got a random pattern again. So that's the Chaotic patch. It's quite something. I find that this is my meditation. This is my, you say midlife crisis, I say mindfulness tool. Because you get to really listen. So you kind of fully in flow. It's really nice to kind of just come out and make a patch. The problem is that I'm gonna go write down what I did. I've got this video. But I'm just gonna tear it down and make a new one probably tomorrow. A bit more. Can't get enough. So that is the Chaotic patch number 1.